Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. They're all big. It's election season, and we are interviewing candidates for all the local and state offices. Today, we're in Senate District 37, and we have Holly Wright with us. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, you're running in a really awkward district. It's just a little bit of Wycomico County, but it's mostly Dorchester, Talbot County.
Well, it's all of Talbot, all of Dorchester, just Preston and Fedelsburg, and Caroline, and then western Wycomico.
So you're not known to us the way a lot of the politicians are known to us. Tell us, who is Holly Wright? We have to get to know you a little bit.
Well, you know, I came from a background of 20 years in public health at the state and regional level, and I worked with legislators all my career. They lobbied me, I spoke before their hearings, and so I know what it looks like when a legislator knows the needs of the district and is fighting for them. And so I'm concerned that our district doesn't have leadership that it needs for working families. We've got wage stagnation. We have other issues. We have problems of access to health care. We have retiree benefits under attack. And that's why I'm running.
Where do you live?
I live in Talbot County in St. Michael's. I moved down from Massachusetts about 8 years ago.
Okay.
I have a sister who lives in St. Michael's. She married a guy from Berlin. They lived in Delaware. They moved to retire to St. Michael's. And then my daughter moved to D.C. To work, and the weight of that family brought me this way.
So, deciding to run, was it something you're angry or inspired, or you just thought you could do this?
Well, I mean both, because I had the experience in government. You know, I know about jurisdiction, funding streams, permitting. I know the business of government. And so when I came down to the Eastern Shore, I actually took training to be a chaplain, and for 4 years I did that. But then with the 2016 election, it really got my antennae working, and I started looking at the quality of representation we had. So I decided to run specifically to replace Addie Eckert.
There's always been talk that our Eastern Shore delegation gets along pretty well, that they're pretty united. But I feel like the problems of the Middle and Upper Shore are very different than the problems on the Lower Shore.
I don't.
Are there more commonalities than I see? I certainly see a wealth issue up there.
Well,
north.
they're definite, and I think we cannot ignore those disparities. Although our elected officials would like us to, I mean, this is really going to come to a head this coming year with the Kirwan Commission recommendations coming out in December and the new state formula for state funding for education. So really, Talbot is in a much better position financially to bear the burdens of its public school education. In a much better position than Dorchester and Wycomico. And certainly some of the other counties like Somerset, for heaven's sakes. And so I think push is going to come to shove this year, and the state is going to have to decide what value it's going to place on its public school education. And are they really going to have an equitable funding formula that takes into account real economic disparities? And I think that's going to come, and I think one of the reasons why the funding formula has been delayed in terms of its publicity is that certain counties are probably going to be disadvantaged, and that probably will include Talbot County and Montgomery County if they really do it in terms of economic disparities.
Yeah, I'm worried about it in terms of Wycomico County because we've always been criticized as not putting up enough of our own money toward education.
Well,
and the Kirwan Commission could ferret that out.
That's true. So there is a role for the counties. And I think there's an obligation on the part of elected officials to point that out, to provide some leadership. And I know the revenue cap is being looked at seriously in both Wycomico County by the Greater Salisbury Committee and Up in Talbot County, we actually have that on the ballot.
Right.
So there is this problem in terms of the decline in public school education. I mean, the state went from #1 rank to 6. Is going to that burden is going to have to be bared, whatever,
Yeah.
by taken on by the state and also the counties.
You're big into healthcare. That's one of your
Yes.
primary issues.
Yep.
It's been ranked as the #1 issue here on the national level for the
Yes.
for the midterms.
Right.
I'm not sure how Obamacare is doing in Maryland.
Yes.
I'm not sure how Medicare is doing in Maryland. What do you see out there in terms of our insurance?
Okay. What I see in the long term is a solution only on the national level. The idea of Medicare for all, I think, is not financially viable. The numbers just, I do not believe, work out on a state-by-state basis. What I would like to see in the long term is something like Medicaid for all, where we gradually add higher and higher income groups
Right.
into a public program. I think that'd be much more politically viable and something that could be developed over time, because I think we really are entitled to a certain predictability about how our health care is going to be paid for. In terms of on the local level, we have something called Medicaid expansion. And Addie Eckert voted against that. And today there are 13,000 people in the counties of our district that have their health insurance through Medicaid expansion. And the behavioral health programs would not be viable without it. And a lot of those behavioral health programs are providing treatment for people who are opioid addicted. So this makes no sense. Another aspect is the price of prescription drugs. Prescription drugs don't do any good for anyone if they are sitting on the counter at Walmart because people can't pay for them.
Right.
So I am for establishing a commission at the state level that scrutinizes the cost of prescription drugs, the new ones that are being introduced, whether the price is reasonable, and if there's a major increase in existing medications. And there was a bill last session, or maybe two sessions ago, on doing something about generic drug price gouging, and Addie Eckert voted against that. Even though she's a psychiatric nurse, people have the misimpression of the way she votes. I'm used to political environments where when you vote, it's in a fishbowl. That does not seem to be the way things have been operating around here.
Is she too conservative?
I think she has a small business agenda. I think she wouldn't dispute that. She wants to keep taxes low. She wouldn't dispute that either. But when she talks about her priorities, that's, I think, where they stop. She says she's concerned about access to health care, but her voting record does not bear that out.
I know you have some strong ideas on the environment, especially with smart energy, clean energy. Talk to me about that.
Well, in terms of solar energy, I guess I have kind of a conservative position. I'm for property rights. So if a farmer wants to use his property, to rent his property for solar installations, I believe, he has the prerogative to do that. And people that have concerns about the aesthetics of it, why don't we get creative and have some design competitions with landscape architecture to just come up with a way of dealing with that? I think Caroline County has come up with a good solution, which is they've decided that 2%, a maximum of 2% of their farmland could be used for solar installations. So then the county, I assume what will happen is after that level is reached, then they'll look at it again to see what it really means. So that seems to me to be a good solution. In terms of wind, I'm for the wind turbines off Ocean City. I think particularly for my district, which includes Wicomico,
Right.
the jobs
Right.
that would be produced by the construction and the maintenance of that form of energy that we want to encourage anyway cannot be denied. And how a representative of this district could not see that is beyond me.
Yeah.
And I think she is equivocating a bit on that.
Yeah, we were positioned,
Yeah.
the business people here were very firmly supporting it.
Yeah.
Governor came to town
Yeah.
and said that'll never happen when he was in Ocean City. I think people, that kind of died off. But there's still a role for us even in the East Coast areas where there are going to be wind farms, even if there's never one in Ocean City.
Well, that's an interesting thing for him to say, because I don't think jurisdictionally the state, I mean, of course, there's a larger political picture that I'm probably not familiar with. But really, I don't think it's a state jurisdictional issue. I think it's more federal.
Right, true. One of the things that's been a big issue in Wycombe County, surprisingly, every election there's some issue that comes out of nowhere. This time it's the stormwater flooding. We're actually feeling the effects of perhaps the
Yes.
rising water levels. And when you see the Dorchester County people are very concerned about
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
since you're primarily going to be Dorchester, a big part of your district.
Yep.
Where are you in this rising water situation?
Well, the National Geologic Survey has identified the Delmar Peninsula and the Gulf Coast as the most vulnerable areas. And Dorchester has a particular problem. In addition to the sea level rise, there's a glacial effect that is actually lowering
Right.
the level of the ground. Not a technical term, but
The alluvial aspects.
we'll say
of-
whatever.
Yeah.
I leave that to
It's
you.
just a pile of sand.
Anyway, it's going down, the water's coming up.
Yeah.
And I know residents are building berms and building plantings and, forestation and all that. But I think what the state can do for areas like Dorchester County and Wicomico is to provide support for geographic information systems. So we'll be able to graph where the vulnerable areas are. But then the final decision will have to be made by counties in terms of zoning and what they want to do in terms of development, and whether you continue to maintain a road when it's underwater 3/4 of the year. Those decisions, I think, should be local, but I think the state can help with the mapping.
You get elected, you get in the General Assembly. What's the first big thing you want to try to do?
Well, the reality is what you try to do has a lot to do with the committee you're assigned to.
Right.
So if it were judicial proceedings, criminal justice reform, there's a lot that can be done there. I think expungement of records could go down to 5 years to really help us restore people's lives at a younger age. And also the whole issue of mental illness in our correctional facilities. So there are so many things that are interesting. If it's economic matters, it will be minimum wage. I'm for increasing the minimum wage, but to 15 over 4 years for large businesses, over 8 for small businesses. But I understand that the discussion at this point is over 6 years
Right.
for raising the minimum wage.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what it would be. Of course, the Education, Environment, and Healthcare Committee will be dealing with all the recommendations from the Kirwan Commission. And the aspect of that, well, I think a lot of the resources should go into pre-K because of its demonstrated effects on, really in the long term in terms of high school graduation rates. And
Right.
your superintendent is really
We're
articulate.
finally going to have it here, yes.
Yes. But beyond that, college and career pathways, there are these work groups that have been working, and such exciting models are being suggested that involve the business community with the schools, identifying the competencies that various jobs will need, and really linking kids earlier, like maybe in their sophomore year, helping them identify what they want to do for a job. And so that they can move forward and move more easily into the world of work. So that committee would be exciting too. So there are a lot of things to do.
You're out and about, you're campaigning,
Yep.
but how can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you, or where's your website?
Absolutely.
How can they find out more about
Music to my ears, and I'm still raising money. HollyWrightForSenate.com is my website. And at this point, I'm still raising money because some people are just kind of waking up to the fact that there's an election, which is appropriate, and they are now turning to their newspapers to educate themselves. And I really could use some extra donations for print advertising. And thank you. Please vote for me.
you? She's Holly Wright. She's running for State Senate, District 37. And we were thrilled to have her here today. Thanks for being here, Holly.
Thanks a lot.